We're going to talk today about embracing AI in model railroading. AI is here to stay. I think we can agree on that. And whether we like it or not, it's going to change the model railroading hobby. AI is not replacing creativity. It's removing friction. It can help with prototype research, background creation, electronics, weathering ideas, signage, operations, scene realism. I want to show you real examples of how I'm actually using AI to improve my layout. So using ChatGPT, let's try something here. I'm going to ask it to make me a railroad crossing sign. Prompting is important. You have to kind of think as clearly and as logically as you can with the prompts. So for this one, I want a pavement sign painted on a road. So being very explicit, I want to see the kind of road signs that you see painted in front of crossings, and it does its thing. Sometimes it's quicker than others. Okay, so here it is. This is pretty much exactly what I want. So from here, I can go and say, look, I want a black and white printable version that I could use as an actual template, and that's what I did for my layout. And then we just hit enter, see what it comes up with. That's pretty good, actually. I would do one more iteration and say slightly more elongated. I'll show you here what the outcome was. I just cut out that. I printed it on cardstock, cut with a razor around those black lines and letters, and just used a dry brush with white paint on the road, and it worked. So this is where you start to realize the power of AI for model railroading. You start with a real-world prototype photo that you can get it to find for you, and then step by step, you can transform that into a printable stencil that you use to actually paint on the road, on the layout. All right, let's talk about how this thing can help you with actually creating scratch-built items and details for your layout. So for me, I have a private railroad crossing, and I wanted to have those bar gates that you see often. They look like farm gates on private railroad crossings. See what it comes up with. We got there. That's basically what I found to make the private crossing. I put a couple of, I think 1 or 2 cross members here. That's essentially what I used as a prototype. And you can see on the layout what I built. It's a private gate owned by the railroad. It's got one on one side and one on the other side with a sign on it. Another thing it's really good at is helping you with era-specific models. And so let's say, in my case, it's a late 90s to early 2000s layout. If I say I am modeling a rail yard in East Hartford, Connecticut, late 90s to early 2000s, what types of Conrail engines would fit that era? So let's see what it comes back with. So it's giving me a readout, telling me best overall choice is the GP382, GE237, and that's actually the list that I used to buy a couple of new engines. So that's where you see the Conrail engines on my layout, and even the CSX engines, and also that was an era when Conrail was kind of being handed over to Norfolk Southern and CSX. So I wanted to be able to have CSX on the layout. So another follow-on prompt that I did, so we'll do it here and see what happens, is would CSX be in Hartford or the Hartford area during that time? So it says CSX becomes very plausible at that point in time. If it's late 90s, early 2000s, then it's safe to have CSX and Conrail together, which is what I have in that yard. I call it the CSX yard, but it's around the time of the when they were absorbing Conrail. It increases the speed at which you can research. You can show it a scene on your layout, and you can ask it to critique it and then even modify it. There is a scene I want it to critique. It's this one. So that is my Providence and Worcester regional office. So I'll say, can you critique this scene? It gives commentary about what's in the scene. The biggest upgrades I'd make: dirty up the building, make the foreground area more industrial, add safety and yard signage, with a whole host of details underneath. Now the cool thing is I could say, render me that image with the changes you suggest. And So there it is. Big difference versus the raw image. And it looks good, honestly. And I can emulate that because I could just look at that and use my dry brush and my powdered pigments and so forth to come up with that. It's still going to be your creativity to get there, but it's giving you a guide. So pretty effective for that. Okay, this one is making backdrops. And I went ahead and typed it in because I didn't want to take the time on camera. Let's see if it actually does what we want it to do. So there it is. That's pretty usable. I mean, I can Photoshop that to get it to the right size, but that's definitely what I have in mind. That would look nice along the siding of it. In fact, I might actually use that one. If you want to save it, you just click on it and save image. There you see it in full scale, and then you could save it or download it. You know, I think the biggest learning, and this goes across all the stuff we're talking about here, is you have to kind of stop giving it casual prompts like you're a casual photographer. You have to start giving it prompts thinking like an architect or a texture artist or in game environment designer. I mean, and we don't all have those skills in game design and architecture, but try to think as technically as you can when you're creating the prompts, so that you're talking to a computer, so you're trying to get the computer to understand what your creative brain is thinking. All right, so we're gonna talk a little bit about electronics, because that's something that a lot of us struggle with, and it's a learning curve. Once you get there, you're good, but there's always new technologies coming out that we have to then learn about. So it's obviously great for that. One thing I did recently, I was hooking up a maintenance away vehicle, and I wanted the ditch lights to oscillate. So to do that, I asked ChatGPT, how do I go ahead and get the ditch lights to oscillate on the front and the back when the horn is sounded? So I had to be very specific about what decoder it was and what I wanted to do. So I'm gonna type that in, and then we'll jump back so you don't have to watch me fumble through the keys here. All right, so I typed in the prompt, and this one's very specific, and this is me learning, having done this already. How do I wire and program front and reverse ditch lights on an ESU Lokesound V5 model number 58420 decoder so they oscillate alternately with the horn? Include wiring, function mapping, directional logic, phase shift oscillation, time settings, and recommended Loke programmer configuration. And I know that I have to talk about phase shift oscillating timing, because if you're familiar with the way the Loke programmer works, that's how they refer to it. The phase shift between two lights is the timing of the alternation, or the altering between the two lights. So as you get more knowledge, you can go in this, which I did, with not a whole lot of knowledge of how to program a decoder, and that's fine. It's just going to take you more prompts. So if I didn't talk about the oscillation, the timing, it would tell me where to connect them on the board. I would do it, and then I would have to go back in and say, okay, now how do I get them to oscillate? And you kind of go through several phases, but it's oftentimes a lot easier to do it this way than to look through the instructions, go on to Reddit threads, and you get 15 different opinions. This thing generally is pretty good at figuring it out. So with that very specific prompt, including the model number, because every decoder is going to be different, and a clear description of what I want this thing to do, let's see what it comes up with. So now it's coming up with the whole wiring plan, where to put resistors. And this was an insight for me, that every ditch light has to have its own auxiliary input, because they're going to be oscillating. So they have to be on different circuits. So you're using aux 1, aux 2, aux 3, aux 4, because you got 2 front and 2 rear ditch lights. Then it gives you the wiring. It gives you some insights on ohms for the resistors and where to put them in the wiring. And then what mode effects you want, setting directionality in the Loke programmer, and then the phasing, and more details. This is where it gets powerful in removing a lot of intimidation from things like wiring. So you can use AI to take away that black box and that uneasiness a lot of people have about electronics. So that's how I got these engines to, most of my engines to have oscillating ditch lights. Okay, now we're going to talk about how I use AI to make the code for my Arduino sign. I've got a highway sign that scrolls words, and I used AI to figure out how to actually write the code and make this thing work. All right, here's the prompt. And again, this is for Arduino code, so I want to be really clear to ChatGPT what I'm looking for. So I'm saying write Arduino Nano code. It's a nano board for a MAX 7219 amber LED matrix display, which is what I have for the display, for an HO scale highway VMS sign. VMS is variable message sign. Rotate the messages, and then I put them in there. Road work ahead, slow down, and buckle up every 5 seconds with smooth scrolling text. Include the required libraries, wiring assumptions, brightness settings appropriate for HO scale, and commented code explaining each section. So I got that specific because when I did this the first time, I had multiple iterations. I said, write the code so I can scroll signs, and then I realized, okay, it needs more. And then ultimately I got to giving it all of this information in a series of prompts. So again, better the prompt, better the output. So this should come pretty darn close. If we send it, let's see what we get. So that one it came up with pretty quick because it's very specific and it's a very technical concept that it understands. So it's giving you all of the wiring assumptions. It's giving you the code, which is basically C++. And what I did in my case is I literally just copied this code and I went into the Arduino interface. I pasted that in and it worked. So you can see there's the different signs that will rotate, road work ahead, slow down, buckle up. I used different wording than that, but I wanted to give you a simple example. It talks about the scroll speed and so forth. So this is all the code. You just paste it in there and test it. And if it doesn't work, you can go back to ChatGPT and say, this is what it's doing or not doing, and it'll correct the code. So that's pretty cool because I didn't want to learn C++. Even my daughter's a software engineer. I wasn't about to waste her time teaching me this stuff. So, you know, that's pretty powerful. You can do things like I never would have used Arduino had it not been for AI because I just didn't want to take the time to learn how to use it. But now I've got that highway sign, which I think is a pretty cool, pretty unique detail on the layout. Another thing you can do with AI is have it identify equipment. So whether it's an engine, what type of engine is this? What type of maintenance away equipment is it? You just upload a picture or several pictures. And I had to do that because I had a 3D printed tie shear, which I didn't know what it was. And I wanted to build it. So I thought it'd be good to know what the function was. So I asked ChatGPT, and that's ultimately how I got there. So I went ahead and typed in the description. I'm going to upload a couple of pictures of the prototype, and you simply just add photos. And there's one. And there's two. See if I can blow one of those up for you. So that's the machine. So what I'm saying, trying to be explicit as possible, what exact type of Nordco maintenance away machine is this? I knew it was Nordco, that was it. I don't know the function. Please identify it by analyzing the visible tools under the machine and explain what those tools do to the rail, ties, ballast, give top candidates and why one is most likely. This way, it's going to come back with some ideas and I'm going to be able to deduce from its results what this thing probably is. So let's see what it comes up with. Okay, so here are the top candidates. It's giving me a lot of text, but it's saying a tie remover inserter. Option 2, it says a Nordco tie shear railroad tie removing machine, which is what it is. So here's an example of where you have to have, you know, some category knowledge. So as a model railroader, you're gonna have a good sense for, okay, which one of these things matches best with what that thing is, and it's number two. You know, AI, it's not going to take over the world, in my opinion. It's always going to need human intervention to kind of, what it does is it compresses the research time, it takes the heavy lifting off of you and allows you to spend more time on the creative side. So, you know, hopefully one of my goals with this video is to take away the black box and the anxiety around AI. And, you know, it's here. So embracing it for the hobby is only going to make the hobby better. It's not going to replace us as model railroaders. It might improve manufacturers, and it'll definitely give us ideas on how to even push ourselves more as far as realism goes. So I think the key takeaway is that it's not necessarily magic. You know, ask it for what a Norco maintenance away machine is. It gets close. It doesn't get right there. So you have to have that that industry knowledge or the model railroading knowledge to help guide the prompts to get it there. So you know, as you use it, you're going to get better at understanding how much detail it needs in the prompts, and it'll need more detail the more obscure the thing is. If it's really out there MOW equipment versus, okay, I need code to make a sign rotate these 3 sets of words, it's going to get that one right because it's pretty black and white, and it's the way computers think, if you can call it thinking, the way they process information. But you can see all of the possibilities. I mean, you can do backdrop additions, you can do electronics, whether it's figuring out how to wire and program a decoder to doing Arduino, you know, getting the ditch lights to work the way I did. You can get great ideas for weathering scenes, have it critique or give you ideas on what you've already modeled to see if you can make it better. You know, at the end of the day, it's just another tool. It's not replacing our creativity, our craftsmanship. It's not replacing artistry or operations or modeling skills. What it is doing is it's accelerating learning for sure and compressing that research process time. It reduces a lot of friction, in my opinion, and it also helps with inspiration. It gives you new ideas that you may not get from, you know, reading journals or magazines or looking at YouTube channels. I mean, it's all part of the mix, but this is one more source. You know, so it opens the doors for modelers who might otherwise feel intimidated by certain parts of the hobby, because this is a tool that can take away that anxiety. Yeah, and honestly, I think model railroading is probably going to end up being one of the hobbies that is most enhanced by artificial intelligence. So I would just say don't fear it, embrace it, and leverage it to your advantage and enjoyment. So I hope that was helpful and interesting. Cheers.